In. All right, my clock says 2 o'clock Eastern, so I am going to dive on in. Ben, would you agree? I think that's a good time. So I'm going to formally
Let's do it.
welcome, great, formally welcome everybody. Happy New Year to one and all. You found the chat. Now you know how to chat back with us and interact. We love this to be your time. So we hope that you'll give us comments or ask questions. Ben Lavelle is our Vice President of Operations at Education Associates, and he'll be manning the chat. So he'll be responding to any questions you have and going on through. And then at the end, Ben, you'll feed me some of the questions and we'll do some Q&A at the end. So go right ahead. And as we go through these materials, please feel free to go ahead and do that. So we're going to get started here. I'm actually going to miss what we've been doing lately on our webinar Wednesdays, and that is that we've been having really the voice of the educator. We've been having some wonderful guest speakers from different districts throughout the country, but we'll be starting that back up again in February on our next webinar. Today, what I'm going to do is pull together all of the really the best practices and the best of all the things that we learn from people like Pam Stock. And she's from Paul Bunyan Education Cooperative in Minnesota. And she was our first speaker back in September, helping us out. She talked about remote and hybrid teaching strategies. You're going to see a theme here. Jessica Mann from Montgomery Public Schools in Alabama spoke about transition strategies. Brooke Went from Medina County Career Center in Ohio talked about remote life skills instruction, so a little bit different. And then we had Cheryl Hubbard George with us from Florence District 3 and South Carolina, and she gave us the administrator's perspective, bridging the gap to employment. And then we had also from South Carolina, this time from Dutch Fork High School, Holly Myers, and we spoke about teaching work-based learning remotely. So if those topics are of interest to you, please let us know. And looking to this and just letting you see if there's any questions, Ben, that I need to take a look at, just please bring them to my attention. But we've got
Will
a
do.
lot of things to cover. So before I go on too much further, let's take a look and see who's here. So I'm going to launch a poll. Another way to get you interacting with us here. Please let us know what your role is. Are you currently in the classroom as a gen ed or special ed teacher? Are you focusing on transition, CTE, or are you in the administrative role? If it's something else that we don't have listed here, put it on into the chat. I'll give you a few moments. Love to get everybody's voice heard in here. We've got a lot of people online today. Once again, really appreciate y'all coming on out. All right, good to see it. Wow. So we have a lot of transition specialists in here today and administrators as well. Wonderful. I'll give it another couple of seconds. We've got about almost 70% of the people coming on in here. Other things, special education instructional coach. Awesome. Case manager in Voc Rehab. Awesome. Vocational instructor. Okay, I'm going to end the poll, and here are the final results so you can see who your peers are. Mostly transition specialists and administrators, and then some of the other ones that I mentioned that were in the chat. So glad to see we've got CTE people in here as well. Awesome. We've got some really good things to share with you. So appreciate that. And, you know, it's so nice when we have a nice group of people. It's like really a diverse group of people. And that just kind of fits in with what we always talk about, Ben, right? It's one size does not fit all. And we celebrate diversity. And especially in 2021, we're going to talk about options for your unique learning experiences. I don't think that any one of us are starting off school now after this winter break in the same fashion. So let's go on to take a look at another poll. And oh, I do see an error in this, so we get to laugh about that. what will the fall semester look like should really be what would the winter semester or spring semester look like in your school district. But if you could just let us know here on this poll whether or not you're 100% remote, 100% face-to-face, hybrid of some sort, parent's choice, or if there's something else, put it on into the chat. And yeah, I can see what's leading already within here. All right, so Jennifer says elementary be 5 days all day, but the middle and high school hybrid. Yeah, very, very common on that as well. And cool. We appreciate your input. We've got a little bit over 50%, mostly remote with established connection hub. That's interesting, Kelly. Some specialized small cohorts. And yeah, it's a lot of different scenarios. I'll end it and let you see what everybody is saying, mostly in the hybrid role. And from my experience now in coaching teachers who have been going through this over the fall and last spring, which was, as you know, just a blur, has been that it's almost easier to do 100% remote versus doing hybrid. And when you've got to juggle and figure out who's going to be where, but our kiddos really need us. So it's so important to have them face to face with us. Appreciate you for giving me your comments here. And so we're going to talk about options and the range of options that might be there. Before I begin, let me just give you a very quick overview on Education Associates. And though this was from 2020, it's still applicable now. Until July of this year, we will not be 41. And you never admit to the next year until you're really there. So we're celebrating 40 years working on transition for both job and career prep, as well as life skills. And I think that the reason that this company has stood the test of time is because of the real dedication and focus on hands-on experiences for kids. Evidence-based materials, UDL, helping teachers meet kids where they're at, and really integrating the academics along with our CTE standards. I mean, it's kind of all in there, and we're really proud of that. And I think it really speaks volumes to say that after 40 years, we're still doing it, and we'll take on COVID hybrid and anything else that comes at us, because we've got a lot of tools in our bag of tricks. We've been accredited and approved by a variety of different organizations, Department of Ed, National Dropout Prevention. I won't read screens to you today. The one I'll call out here, though, is the CASE endorsement. Down at the bottom there, a Council of Administrators of Special Ed did grant us this endorsement. And if you're not familiar with it, briefly, I'll say that it's like a little mini dissertation. You have a set of rubrics that you have to write your research into and say, here's our research, here's how it pans out in the schools, the outcomes that we have. You have to provide them with references that they call. And it took a long time. It took about 8 months for us to get it. I think we were a little delayed because of COVID, but we're very proud of that. And it really speaks volumes about the research-based practices that we'll be talking about today. I'm not going to go in depth today about the actual curriculum from Education Associates. I'm just going to let you know we've got 2 big chunks of our curriculum. There's Project Discovery, which is our career preparation, job readiness, and Achieve Life Skills. There's an awful lot in each of these programs. So we won't be going into that today, but if you'd like, we do on-demand personal tours. And we're happy to walk you through. Oftentimes, a district administrator or a transition specialist will get several of the colleagues together and we'll walk through the career awareness, career exploration, job skill training. We'll talk about our adapted series or the life skills series here for independent living skills, self-confidence and social skills, health and nutrition, job prep and employability. These are amazing curriculum pieces, and it just really empowers teachers to go in so many different directions. So I will not go into depth. We're not doing a product demo, but we'd be happy to do that for you at another time. I'll tell you more about how we can do that at the end of this. So without further ado, I'm going to share with you some of the best of. And as Ben just said, we will be sending a recording of this session on out. And it's certainly our pleasure to share these great pieces with you. So our first speaker last year joined us was Pam Stock, as I mentioned earlier, from the Paul Bunyan Education Cooperative in Minnesota. And she was amazing. Even though my internet and power had failed because of Hurricane Isaias, made me a little crazy that day, Pam was amazing as she addressed the work that she does in Minnesota. She's a retired special education teacher, and she's been working with multiple districts to help adapt the curriculum for remote learning scenarios. And so when we sat down and started speaking more about it, Pam dug on in and gave us some things to think about. I think it still holds true today. So the very first thing that she had on her list is just so sage. It's so wise. So everybody here today, we've got 75 plus people here. Let's take a cleansing breath. 1, 2, 3. And let it out. Keep calm and simplify. When she started with us and told us, don't worry, it's all going to be okay, I think we started to get it. But she had real concrete strategies, like how to coach your parents, setting some expectations, helping create packets of information with parents for those who had technology challenges. This is so simple, but it's so true that sometimes a phone call works better. And you forget, we try to be so fancy. We're using the Zooms, the Google Hangouts, and all of these apps that we're smashing together. Yeah, sometimes a phone call just really kind of made it home. We missed John last week. What happened to him? Oh, we can catch him up on this. As I said, very wise advice. Utilizing your paraprofessionals. She said, our paraprofessionals are there to help, and they really have that desire to make sure students are reaching their best. Maybe we could do things like having 2 students to 1 para on a Google Meet, so that the students could really feel that it was the teacher and the paraprofessional helping them through, let's say, the tasks of a particular career that we were exploring or life skills that we were diving on into. It was, it's real simple, but straightforward. She talked about ways to help evaluate performance, because it's so difficult because you're not in the same room with the student. Can that student demonstrate competency in doing those particular tasks? So she said, in coaching the parents, when we're setting the expectations, that you can go through the benchmarks and help the parents understand. And I'll show you some of those, I think, during this a little bit. But we've got benchmarks for each of our careers and the tasks that would occur during a career, so that if I'm learning about working in a greenhouse, or if I'm learning about childcare, or even just being a server at a restaurant, there are steps. So in order to set a table, for instance, it takes 16 steps, and you coach the parents through those steps. And then have the parent take their phone and take a picture of the student doing those steps, demonstrating competency, doing their own social story. Really simple things, but wonderful advice. That was some things that worked for her in the spring. She also went into depth about transition goals and on IEPs, because we all know this is the bane of our existence, right? We're constantly weighing our time and how much time do we take writing the IEP versus how much time do we take to teach the children those skills. Sometimes, you got to make sure we're spending our time and measuring it well. Balancing is what I should be saying. So she said, make sure the transition goals are still on the IEPs, even if we know that we can't be placing students out into the field. Don't skip them, but you could be a little bit more generic. So instead of talking about a student who's going to be placed in a community business of some sort, whether it's a retail store, stocking shelves, or working in a restaurant and helping to bus tables, or working in a greenhouse, to talk about learning the skills that are involved with being a server in a restaurant, learning the skills that are involved with working in a greenhouse or in an office or working in a retail store. So she was really talking about how you could plan both synchronous and asynchronous activities and represent that on the IEPs. And I think that was really wise of her to kind of share with us as we were going along. And when we were talking about the benchmarks, here's some of the benchmarks that I was referring to before. So they're on the right-hand side. From our adapted version, which is for more severe and profoundly impaired students, we've actually done the task analysis on how to set a table, 16 steps to do that. The first column is for their first attempt, second column, second attempt, to demonstrate how they were able to do it with some level of independence. Did they need hand over hand to guide them through, or were they able to make it on verbal prompting, or did they do it on their own with no prompting, just some rewards at the end? And then another set in our greenhouse kit talking about the different activities. You can see there are 6 different activities that comprise that particular job experience, or should I say virtual job experience. So there are ways to use the curriculum and really put it into place. And I really thank Pam for sharing that with us. As the fall proceeded, so did all of our unique teaching experiences. And Jessica Mann came on in to help us. She's from Alabama, and talk about some of her transition strategies. So these were 5 of her top highlights and things that she recommended. And we've incorporated this into the professional development that we provide as part of our curriculum. First one seems so logical, and there it is. We looked through all of our curriculum to find those activities which utilize materials that would be readily found around the house. The table service activity is a perfect example. Parents can find plates and forks and knives and cups and dishes and so forth, and we can have them walk through that activity and then give the customer a menu and take an order and practice being a server, because that's what happens in that particular curriculum. You go from just setting the table to taking orders and serving food and being a waiter or waitress. Then the other thing that she talked about was flipping the classroom, using some of the materials in our curriculum, which were already multimedia based. We have video modeling, we have PowerPoints with audio, natural sounding audio. So have the students, listen to those multimedia tools prior to you getting on during the synchronous time to teach the activities and to work through some of the problem solving and troubleshooting scenarios and so forth. Telling social stories, one of my favorite evidence-based practice, because it really does involve kids in so many good ways. We've got lots of social stories as models. So here might be an example that you can see in our curriculum as you are learning how to be a hair and nail stylist, but maybe you come up with your own that demonstrate your proficiency in being able to explore that particular career. We spoke about using other tools, and I've got some additional examples from other people that we spoke with, and they'll show you in a bit, like using Google Forms, and first of all, using Google Classroom just to share the materials that we have in our curriculum with your students, and then using Google Forms to deliver those pre and post tests that we include so that you have a baseline and an ability to measure progress. So lots of fun. And this one was probably my favorite, Virtual Career Day. I've got a picture at the end of this of a virtual field day that went on in South Carolina, so we can look at that one. But that one was done face to face. You could actually do a little virtual career day on Zoom and have folks that are demonstrating, maybe sharing their social story or sharing something that they created. Or wouldn't it be lovely if the child were planting seeds in the greenhouse unit and they were sharing, look at some plants that they actually have growing outside their house. So that leads me to our next guest speaker, who was Brooke Went. And Brooke is an intervention specialist and job training coordinator at Medina County Career Center in Ohio. And Brooke, really brought it home, and she was just showing us so many different things. At Medina, she's got 12 different topics in their library that to choose from out of the 62 topics that we have in our life skills curriculum. The life skills curriculum really complements the career curriculum, can be used standalone or could be used to support it. So they really, nicely play off of each other. Everybody, remember, different strokes for different folks. A lot of diversity in the way people approach it. Brooke shared with us how she took the consumer shopping um, life skills curriculum and did it in a remote fashion. She's quite a techie, and so she did some app smashing, that's the term, and she used Kahoot, which is a free program, and it allows you to set up a series of questions and answers so that you could ask a question like, the best buys are usually in the smallest package, true or false? And the students get a code and they can indicate their answer, and they see the response right away. They get a reinforcement on it. It is great when you've got your, small group, 6, 8, 9 students, and everybody can kind of say, no, I think it's true. I can have a little dialogue about it as well. Lots of good questions. She didn't have to make these questions up. They came from our curriculum. So it's nice that she was very creative and added in the technology piece of it. But we were able to provide her with the content. And she found that it was really easy to take our PowerPoints, like this particular one from the consumer shopping, and pop it on into Google Slides. So she used Google Classroom to share that for students. And she was looking for things that they could relate to, and Frosted Flakes was right up there on her list. So she thought that was appropriate. And then she discovered that when she was doing this, she used her own voice to narrate and talk about the slide just like she was in class. So she read, even over our audio, she read the slides and talked about, so what do you think? What would you want to do to be a smart consumer? What's the importance of that if you have, limited funds? So she talked it through, and she said her kids really got a kick out of the fact that it was her voice on the technology that was using this for her. And of course, she was the one, she put the Google form for our pre and post test up on the Google Forms as well. And so that was really just a special way. And it was very natural. She said it took her, and I did one of those myself. It took me 3 minutes to just copy paste, because we provide access to all of the curriculum, the actual content on a thumb drive. So you can have full, it's not just a PDF, it's like the Word file or the PowerPoint file. So you can open it up and modify it, change it as you go along. So we thank Brooke for sharing all of her technical expertise with us as well. Then, we had a really lovely session here with Cheryl Hubbard George. She's the Director of Exceptional Children at Florence District 3 in South Carolina. And it was great because she really offered the administrator view and some thoughts about what she had to keep in mind as she was helping her teachers get ready to do this hybrid, remote, and face-to-face type of instruction, which all of you are going through. God bless you all. So she started off with just kind of the big picture, taking a look overview. And actually, I want to go back and just kind of share one thing. So Florence 3 has about 3,400 students and about 8 schools, just to kind of give you a perspective, right? So she took a look and said, to what extent are our students with disabilities successfully able to access our CTE courses? So I was really glad to see we had a number of CTE teachers in here as well today, because she really was bridging that gap. She was bringing together both her transition specialists and the district CTE programs together, because the materials that we have in Project Discovery, they don't say anything about reading levels or difficulty levels, special ed or general ed on anything that's student facing. So even though you might have the curriculum in front of you and you know that the reading level on this activity is 2nd through 4th grade, and you've got a sister activity that mirrors it, and that's 5th through 6th grade reading level, and you're handing it out to 2 different students who are both 17 years old, neither one of those students realize that they've been given some differentiated difficulty on their materials. So that's bridging the gap. And that's what she was really diving on into. She said she started off by also taking a look in her town at the types of viable career pathways that were out there, right? So healthcare social assistants seem to be at the top of the list, the community hospital and so forth, manufacturing, they had a number of different firms, downtown Lake City, food service opportunities and retail trade. So she looked at that and involved community members. And frankly, they actually went as far as to have conversations. They formed a school-based committee. They had representatives across the silos and our school district, and they spoke about things that CTE instructors really needed to have a better comfort level with in not dealing with students who may have certain learning or intellectual challenges, right? So safety concerns, delivery accommodations, master schedules, and we really looked at a lot of different things, including, how do push and pull rates factor into engagement or dropout and disengagement. So it was really, I think, very open thing. Everybody came together to help resolve what was going on. They created a simulated career discovery lab on campus so that students could be entering into a retail environment or a food establishment or a medical environment or a factory, right? Those were the four big viable career pathways. So they created these things. They used our kits to kind of outfit that and create this lab. And the CT and special ed teachers work together to help to deliver that instruction and measure and monitor the students as they were going through. The professional development was really a key element. And we have nationally certified trainers that we provided that also did some help. They did a lot of peer mentoring, right? Peer to peer, creating teams as they were going on through. So those in-house mentoring opportunities, they're the best. They're absolutely the best. And we've got great trainers and they can work with your teachers and help them mentor each other. And it's really a big piece of it. I wish we could talk about professional development first and then curriculum second, because that's where my heart is. And I think that's what really makes things change. But the last point on here, I do want to bring out to you, and that is, if you're doing a great job like this and you're making it happen, shout it out. Let your board of directors know, your school board, parents, the community. There's usually a public relations executive in each school district. I would bring them on in. They usually have some sort of a media connection, getting onto the local news, getting in the local newspaper. Shout it out, because it really becomes a happening. And then everybody is working together. That's what they found in Florence 3 that helped create a whole lot of opportunity for kids. These are just like some of the courses that they offer. They also have coming soon, engineering, biomedical, and aeronautics. So cool. And it really is a great example of what you can do when you're working together. And I promised you a photo of a career day. This is one of the career days they had. Obviously, this one is pre-COVID, but I think we can also be imagining how you can do some of these things during a Zoom as you're going on through. So we were really just so thankful to Cheryl for sharing all of her great information with us. And I really do miss having my partners on here. So next month we'll have somebody else with us. We'll talk more about that. Then we had from another district here at Lexington, Richmond 5 in South Carolina, Holly Myers. Now, Holly's super special. She is one of our nationally certified trainers, as well as in addition to being a special education teacher and a mentor and a whole bunch of other things. So she started off by really providing some excellent points that might help you create your case and defend your case for the importance of work-based learning. Sometimes we need to, have some of that to get people to realize this is not just something that we can just kind of brush off. It's important for our students. We've got, students who are aging out at 21 or 22 years of age, and we want to make sure that they're going out into the community to live their own personal best life. So she talked about how it provides students with the opportunity to really connect their learning in school to what will happen beyond that, talking about all their different career interests and helping them identify those things that they like and are good at, and that they can understand where that fits within the workplace itself. So kind of cool. I thought this was really neat as well, that their district administration and local chamber of commerce got together to figure out what some safe job options were. And they also, like Cheryl Hubbard George did, they also used some school locations so that the students could be working in a safe environment at the school. And I don't know if I pointed out, let me just go back one second. If you can see these two young gentlemen here with their masks on at one of the schools on the district, following through on some of the greenhouse work that they were, from one of our kits. And there's some just real life application. So in her list, there's certainly some places within the community that they were reaching out to. And I love the list of different community businesses and organizations that they were able to form partnerships with. And but I love the last one as well, to have the students from the program who I believe, and I think they were the 17 through 21. I'll have to kind of go back to my notes and double check because every state is a little different, 17 to 22 sometimes. But to have those students come on into the elementary school to help not only in the cafeteria, but in the remote food services, right? Because we've spent an awful lot of time this year realizing that when students are learning remotely, we still need to help them with some of those food services. And it was great on the job training for her transition students. And it's one of those, gee, I should have thought of that, right? And you might be saying that to yourself right now because it's kind of a great tip to remember as you're going along. Yes, where are places that they could help right within the school community to demonstrate some of the skills that they had? And so here are some additional areas and things that she found around the school that students were able to do. And there were some special things like her father actually had created a pegboard for students that helped them stock gift cards like you would see at a CVS or Walgreens or something like that. So learning how to do those types of skills right there, or stocking shelves, part of our grocery clerking curriculum. So they got very creative about how they could do that at the school, working in the cafeteria, or even, planning an attractive plate, learning about the menu and learning how they were going to be able to serve whole meals that included all of the food groups in a proper ratio, learning some of the health and guidance pieces from our life skills curriculum with that. So it was pretty creative, and it really at the same time, I think, helped the students continue to gain those types of skills that could be marketable when they leave the system. Now, Holly took it one step further, and she worked with us to help us create some of our new guidance documents, because we not only surveyed teachers around the country to find how they were using the materials in a remote or hybrid fashion since March of 2020, but we created some guides on how to use our general curriculum, our adapted curriculum, our life skills curriculum. And we went through each of those and really enumerated what you might be doing in an in-class delivery model versus distance or hybrid. And Holly helped write some of this for us. So our curriculum is written by teachers for teachers, and so are our instructional strategies and guides that go along with that. So I hope that kind of gave you a little bit, you got to see a little bit of what we had done during our past half year of being in remote and hybrid. I'm going to pause for a moment because I've been talking a lot, and I'm going to turn to Ben and say, hey, Ben, I keep seeing things go by on the chat. Are there any questions that you'd like to address? I have not paid attention to that as much.
Sure thing, Joyce. We had some common questions on here, and I think I answered some in the chat, but just for everybody's benefit, we had people ask if there was going to be a recording of this webinar, and also you're referring to webinars, a recap of previous webinars and how we can access those.
Okay, super. I will actually show them where they can get to that. And we'll just see. I think I can just go right to it. So first thing, because it's probably 2 more down from here. But the first thing that I will say is that on our website, there are some really helpful tools in here. So we've not only got the recording here, but we've taken a page, and it's really easy to get to. Matter of fact, I'm going to let that URL and show and the toolbar and let it show. So you can actually, some people like to kind of take a look at the URL itself. So on educationassociates.com, why us remote learning, we've got a list of some of these best practices and what you can be doing for remote learning. So pre and post tests, modeling kit activities, worksheets, what could you do with each of those things? Very helpful, especially if you have the curriculum. And then also helpful, here's where I said we pulled activities out of the curriculum and the materials that you'd need at home to do it. So for instance, in our child care kit, there's a lot that you can do with a baby doll, some diapers, clothes, and a blanket. And it really helps prepare students. Now, of course, the baby dolls in our kit, I happen to be really in love with them. And most of the students are too. We've got 2 dolls, one's a light skin, one's a dark skin. And they're really weighted, like they feel like you're not carrying a doll, you feel like you're carrying a baby. But any doll would do. So I think they're pretty cool. So we've got that kind of a thing just to help. And then the other thing that comes before I can tell you about the where the webinars are is our newsletters, which also kind of recap these things. So this is almost a easier way to share with people, because if you're on our newsletter list and you can look on our website, I think, Ben, it's on every page, right? On the website, on the bottom. So on every page, there's that little footer there. You can sign up for newsletter. You can sign your staff up for the newsletter, and they won't get spammed by us. They'll just get a newsletter. And that's now a synopsis of what was spoken about during that session and or other new topics of interest that we're finding. And then I'll jump to the webinar Wednesdays, first webinar of Wednesday of every month. And hold on, I went too far. That's what we want to do. So on the webinar Wednesday, you're not popping it up? No. All right. I'll show it to you. So we have on the website itself, you can come on in and look at our video, our webinar Wednesday archive right here. And this is where we've got them all stashed. Pretty easy to get to. And so they're free, they're there. Share this site with broadly. Share it with parents, right? We're talking about coaching parents and stuff. The things that we're talking about are real simple tips, and they really would give them a great perspective and the right set of expectations and so forth. All right, so I took a long time to answer your one question, Ben, but that's because it was a couple of steps away. Are there other questions that you wanted to bring up?
There were a couple people that had some questions related to converting documents for remote and online use, or to share the documents remotely. I know we talked about that a little bit.
Mhm,
A certain when you were going over, especially I think Brooke's presentation.
mhm.
But whether it's our curriculum or just other curriculum, can you speak to some resources that people could use or some ways they could find out the best way to make any necessary changes to implement something that they were doing in person to a remote situation?
Mhm. So you need to look and see what the technology is in your district that's available. And there's kind of, a couple of big players in the space. Google is a pretty huge player in the space with Google Classroom. But then you've also got Schoology and Microsoft, and there's a number of different LMSs that are around. So I can't address all of them at one time right now, but the general approach that I would suggest is our materials do come on a thumb drive, and I would, because we've relaxed our copyright restrictions, right? So you're supposed to be using these on a site license basis. So we were supposed to be on site. We've relaxed that so that you can put them up into the cloud for use during this time period of unusual teaching experiences. And I would suggest we put the materials that would be student facing, worksheets, pre and post tests, slideshows. I would put them there in a folder for students to receive. So if they're in a Schoology environment, they've got their own folder in their class of materials that have been assigned to them. If you're in a Google Classroom, you have the same sort of a thing. They will come to you in a standard Microsoft Office Word format, so Word and PowerPoint. But if you're using strictly Google, Google will open up the Word document and then you just save as a Google document. And it's pretty straightforward. Google will open up a PowerPoint and then you just save as Google Slides. There's some things that change. I believe when you bring the slideshow on over to Google Slides, you will lose our audio. So maybe that's why Brooke recorded her own audio. The trick around that is to take the PowerPoint and save it as a PPS. So it's PowerPoint show, I think is probably what it stands for. And the PPS will automatically run for students and keeps our audio. They would just go up to their Google Drive, click on it, and the PowerPoint would start to go. And we're doing a first look activity at students who are learning about auto detailing or carpentry or any of the other hundreds of careers that we can address. So it may take a little bit of figuring out. And if you're not the techie, I would also just suggest that you look around because there are always those helpers within the district. If you are having a problem, there are helpers within the district that you could raise your hand to. If you don't have a helper, call us. We can walk you through it because it's really there's not a lot. You don't have to go to like a conversion program and convert stuff from one form to the other. It's pretty straightforward. People also use Dropbox to put things, and there are other ways that you can share files that are a little bit larger. Some of those video files, the video modeling, are kind of large, and they can go on up and just play them right off of that. Good. Other questions? Oh, and actually, this might also be another answer to that too, Ben. And that is that, as I said in the beginning, we offer personal Zooms. So you can, right here, don't look at the screen and talk at the same time. So you can come on our website and choose personal Zoom. There's actually a real calendar there, and me with bangs and different glasses. But you could pick a date and schedule a time so that you could bring people together to review the materials and ask more specific questions about your specific situation. It's not for training, it's for learning about more products. If you need training, just call us and we'll talk about training options with you as well. Yeah. Any other questions that popped on up? I think there's just one thing I missed.
There were some questions, and I'll actually answer this if you don't mind, Joyce. There were just some
Yeah.
questions about how to get more information about converting, if anyone on this webinar is a current customer that has any of our curriculum, how to get those guidance documents that you mentioned, and how to, specific tactics for using our curriculum that you had been implementing in the classroom, either in a remote scenario or a hybrid scenario. So you have our contact us page up there. That's obviously always works well. It's got an info@Education Associates email. I went ahead for this webinar and put my own email and our office number there in the chat. So we do just give those out individually just because they don't apply universally. So they kind of make sense within the specific context. So if you want them, we'd be happy to give them to you. They are free. And you may be able to apply some of those tactics elsewhere as well.
Super, super. And I know that you have some folks asking also about the next webinar, which is on February 2nd. And we're still working on the final details, but we'll be sending those out shortly. So if you signed up for this one, it's likely that you'll get the invitation for the next one as well. And or you can always come on in and put in a contact on me and let me know about the next webinar that's going on as well. And there was one thing, I think, because I was kind of going through that I did skip, that's really a great resource for folks that you may not have heard about yet. And that is that we do have a preview packet that you can download right off of the web. And it's pretty cool. It's pretty easy download. And it affords an ability for you to share this information with other folks and to look at some of the curriculum pieces, as well as being able to listen and see. And I actually will show you, so I can go back one, that'll be the easiest spot. And you can come on in, and it's a really pretty straightforward thing. You can fill this on out and pull that on out for you. And I do have one that's already been downloaded, and she's over here, I'll say, almost. And here you go. So this is what the preview packet looks like. It's just a PDF document, kind of gives you some pieces. But I really do love the fact that you could, like click on, see it, and it's going to pop open for you, one of our video modeling examples and so forth. I've got the sound down on it, but there is sound to this right now. So it'll show you what the pieces of the curriculum are that you need and how it gets laid out and so forth for you. So I like that. I think this is a very creative way of doing that. Oh, I guess I have to be from here, go back one. And then there's also just where you can listen and hear it, and then see some of the materials there in terms of, what does it look like to actually perform that task in project discovery. So it's kind of neat. It gives you an opportunity to just kind of see what some of the components are and share that with other folks in your district who need to help make decisions about what the curriculum could do for students. Pretty cool, right? I mean, it's right there at your fingertips. And then we can see kids doing this stuff. It's so awesome. So, and if I turn the sound on, you'd be able to hear her taking the order and everybody placing their order and so forth. But just darling. Cool. All right. I think then that was kind of all of the stuff. We're ending a little bit early here today. If you've got any other questions, we're happy to answer. Once again, as Ben had said, we did put our contact information on up here. And we want to thank you for your time. We appreciate what you're doing in the schools today. And we hope that you were able to pull a few good nuggets from this, things that you can use in your own schools. And we hope that this year is the last year we have to do this crazy stuff and we can go back to normal in the future. But I think a lot of these tips still apply. I really do. Just the simple things of engaging parents, engaging the community, and being creative about helping kids explore different careers so that they can live their own personal best life. So with that, thank you very much. Appreciate you and hope you have a great day.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks, Ben.